Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Debate Time. Today we have my respected guest, Dr. Masooma Ja'far, who is a qualified dentist, an author, and a teacher of Islamic studies, and a lecturer who has addressed a range of audiences around the world. And she is also a qualified counselor and a chaplain who has worked with women prisoners and an advisor for the Hertfordshire Police in Muslim matters. Also, I would like to welcome my respected Sheikh Muhammad Al-Hilli, born in Baghdad, and a qualified and registered pharmacist, an Islamic scholar, a public speaker, and an author and a researcher, and the executive director of Noor Islamic Education, an established charitable organization based in the United Kingdom. And they are here to discuss whether harmonious marriages can take place between those from different communities and cultures. So, stay with us, we will be back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Debate Time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran states, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qabaila lita'arafu. Inna akramakum inda Allahi atqakum. Inna Allaha alimun khabir. And this verse, my respected brothers and sisters, addresses all mankind, not only the Muslims. Addresses all mankind that they need to understand that in perfect world, the two would be synonymous. All races of men, white, brown, and black, are His creations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made them to vary in color, language, mode of life, and has placed them in different lands. But before Him, they are all one and cherished by Him alike. And He is the most honored, who is most righteous. And the Holy Messenger of Islam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam, states, do not take pride in superior birth, tribe, or nation. If I can welcome my guests, the respected Sheikh Muhammad Hilli and the respected Dr. Masooma Ja'far, to the discussion and to the debate. And if I can, after welcoming them both, if I can start with Dr. Masooma Ja'far. Dr. Masooma, if I can start with you and asking briefly and as an introduction to this debate, what are the aims and goals of a successful marriage?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think it's important to realize that marriage isn't the Disney's type of marriage that we're brainwashed into thinking. It's not about living happily ever after. But the purpose behind marriage, as is the purpose behind anything that we do, is to get closer to Allah in order to gain this taqwa that Allah speaks about, in order to move on our spiritual path towards Allah. We cannot hold another person responsible for our happiness. That's a huge burden to put onto another human being. I think we need to recognize that we're in control of our emotions. And I'm not getting married so that someone else can make me feel happy. I'm getting married in order to grow and move towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this new aspect of my life, inshallah.
Ahsantum, jazakumullah khair. But if I ask that, this would be the case generally if two individuals, the male and the female, are getting to know each other or getting to get married to each other or plan a life together, that are from the same community, from the same background, and from the same society. But what happens if the male is from one community, the husband is from one society, and the wife is going to be from another background, from another community? Would this formula still apply to this kind of marriage?
Of course it would. I think, again, in order to move on our spiritual path towards Allah, we need to move out of our comfort zone, because that's where growth happens. It's when we're in our comfort zone, when we're really, really comfortable, very little growth happens. So when we're actually marrying someone outside of our culture, outside of the norm, it actually will maybe help us to grow a little bit more, because we've moved out of our comfort zone. And when it comes to Islam, all cultures can fit into Islam. It's when the problem arises when we try to fit Islam into our culture, and we make our culture higher than Islam. If we're, as long as the criteria should be that they're a Muslim, I think as long as that criteria is there, then of course the same purpose will hold strong.
أحسنتم جزاكم الله خير. Sheikhna, Sheikh Muhammad, if I can ask you about two individuals getting or planning to get married, and they are from different castes, from different religion, from different community, but it is known that people strongly prefer to have their children marry or choose someone from the same caste or from the same religion. And unfortunately, preconceived societal values have forced these individuals to think alike in the same circle. However, if some comes to oppose this culture or these values that force them to make them to get married from the same group, from the same community, from the same religion, what happens if the parents or the in-laws disapprove of this kind of relationship or this kind of marriage? And where does Islam come into it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. A warm greeting to the respected Sayyid and respected Dr. Masuma and all sisters and brothers watching. I think the issue of intra-cultural marriages is a very delicate, sensitive issue that's affecting many communities, especially in the Western world. What we've got to distinguish, I think, is very important to distinguish between the kind of intra-sect marriages and intra-cultural marriages. So you have differences in many ways when it comes to Sunnis, Shias getting married, and for example, when it comes to different cultures, such as, for example, khoja Pakistanis marrying Iraqis, Iranians, or so on and so forth. The reality on the ground is, because there is a shared identity that many people are coming across, and that is, for example, British or American or Swedish or Dutch, that because of the shared language, the environment at university campuses, and just generally the interaction that's happening out there, making many people feel that cultural differences may be put aside for the purposes of marriage. Of course, as you said, there are many parents who would object to this, because their aspiration from a young age has been for their offsprings to get married to the same culture, so to speak, so that they do things in a way that they're always used to. It's very important for them that they do things in the way that they're always used to. But in reality, what we find Islamically, I think it's a very sensitive one. I'm going to say this, and maybe some people may not agree with this, but in my humble opinion, I don't feel that if the parents object to a marriage which is not a part of their culture, they're being racist. I don't think racism is necessarily is the case here. I think it's preference. It's like saying somebody from the same culture, I don't want them to marry because there are some features. However, if there is Islamically, in terms of Sharia, if there is a clear compatibility in terms of, for example, faith, in terms of akhlaq, there's nothing wrong with the person, except that in the eyes of the in-laws, so to speak, they're from a different culture. Then the authority of the father may not uphold, they may lose their authority. If they're rejecting the boy or the girl, most likely the boy in the cases that we're discussing, based on their background, I meant ethnicity or culture. So in that way, it puts them in a difficult position, because some of the ladies, they decide to go ahead. I am currently dealing with two cases. I won't mention which background, so in case they're watching, they won't know who it is. But two cases where the parents are saying absolutely not, over my dead body. It can never happen, because we've always wanted this particular background culture for our daughter, and the daughter is going ahead. Sharia allows her to go ahead because the father is stopping her only based on culture, nothing else. The boy is good. I've interviewed him. I've spoken to him. His akhlaq, his deen is good. But he happens to be a revert. And, the father doesn't want, for example, a revert. I don't think the father is racist. I think the father just can't get to grips with the reality that things have changed in the world that we live today. And instead of embracing it and working together and building that, maybe he's creating that obstacles for him and his family.
And it's amazing, Sheikhna, as you say that you've spoken to the father, and he's of a good intellectual and religious background, and is so the future husband. But it's unbelievable that the parents, in a current climate, in a current situation, where the youth are facing increased difficulty in finding the appropriate partner for themselves to be able to live in a harmonious and a very calm environment and a lifestyle, that they still would rather allow or get their daughter or the son to live in times of difficulty and to see them in front of them to suffer, rather than choosing the partner that they would like and love to live with.
Yes, the reason is two things. First of all, some parents think that their son or daughter would not go ahead with it. They call their bluff, so to speak. They think that by telling them no, 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 eventually they'll say, you know what, I want the pleasure of my parents over the happiness of myself, so therefore they'll call it off. In many cases, this is not happening. In my experience of dealing with many cases, this is not happening. The son or the daughter is going ahead because they feel the parents are outdated. They don't feel the parents are in tune with the current trends in society. The second thing is the people are afraid of their culture and what others say. There is this gossip element, their reputation. So they say, oh, this person, they married their daughter to this person who is not from this culture. So they don't like gossip. So they want to have like normality. They don't want to, you're right. The challenge today is to look at what is best for my daughter and my son. We all have aspirations. We all want certain ways. But I think the main thing is really faith. So for example, I say to people who are struggling in this way, I say for me, and I am not somebody who necessarily advocates a lot of intra-sect marriages, the so-called sushi marriages. I feel that they are much more difficult than the intra-cultural marriages. I say to these parents, I say, you know what? As long as the brother or the sister is a Shia Ithna Ashari, who is a believer in the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, who is a good person, good character, and so on, then at least be pleased and be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. That is an amazing thing to have, and at least you are able to build on that basis. The experience I've had with people who go with kind of Sunni Shia marriages, it doesn't mean it's going to fail, but it requires much more hard work because things are different. This year, I dealt with a case whereby a brother separated from his wife because his wife was Sunni, and she was determined that her sons must fast on the day of Ashura. And he was saying, no, I don't want them to fast. And they had a problem, and he called me. And he said, we have a problem. So we are separating because we can't come to a conclusion. There are clear theological, jurisprudential areas that are a major problem. And it is harder to overcome than to overcome cultural differences between couples.
Ahsantum, Shaykhna, Jazakumullah khair, and very well put. And inshallah, the brothers and the sisters who are inshallah watching would be able to take some important lessons for themselves, for their families, for their future children, inshallah, when they grow up and they want to be able to choose the perfect partner that they would like to spend the rest of their lives with. If I can come back to the respected Dr. Masooma Ja'far, as you are yourself the female resident alim of the London Stanmore Khoja community, and I'm sure you've been in the midst of these kind of times where you've got families, or you've got children, male, female, maybe approaching you for help and assistance. If I can quote something that we have come across by one of the brothers or sisters sending us, is saying that, if I and I quote this person saying, marrying my husband was like broadening a horizon that I never knew ever existed. Of course, we literally had to stand our ground and fight my brothers at the time of announcing that we'll get married. We both got hurt in the process, but now we found out it was worth it. Have you ever, as a resident alim, as a scholar, as a counselor within the khoja community specifically, and in the broader sense, the Islamic community, have you ever been approached of individuals who have expressed this kind of hardship when they came to announce or inform their families about such marriages?
First of all, sorry, can I just correct you? I am no longer the resident alim of Stanmore. I did it for 4 years. I've had to step down for personal reasons.
Ahsantum.
But yeah, from my work that I did do within the community, and even outside of the community, this is something that is there all the time, especially in the West, where I think the children are growing up with less of that strong cultural background that our parents and grandparents had growing up in in the countries that they grew up in. So I think it is very much there, and I've been involved in lots of cases where children who've wanted to marry outside of the culture, also outside of the sect as well. And I agree with Sheikh Hilly, where he says that outside of the culture is something that is very common now, and I think it's something that parents have to get their heads around. I would put on a third reason why parents tend to say no. So Sheikh, now you gave two reasons. I think the third one, speaking as a parent of children who have got married, would be the fact that you want your children to have an easy life in marriage, because marriage itself is very, very difficult. And so in your head, you're thinking, if they marry the same culture, then it'll be easier because they know what to expect. They, the same language, the same foods, the same way of thinking. All of that makes it much easier. So you don't have that much differences. But what I think parents don't realize is that just because you're a khoja or an Iraqi or an Iranian or a Pakistani, you don't hold the same sort of cultural not values, but you don't have the same sort of hold on the culture as you did when you were back home. So a lot of the Western culture seeped in as well. So even when you marry the same culture, you can still have a huge difference in the way you think, dependent on where you grow up. So, for example, you can have someone who was brought up in the West, and then someone from the same culture brought up back home. So whether it's an Iraqi brought up in Iraq, or a khoja brought up in East Africa, or a Pakistani brought up in Pakistan, if you were to bring the two together, there would be a huge culture clash, although they are from the same culture in terms of sort of book-wise. It's like you're all khojas, or you're all Iraqis, or you're all Iranians or Pakistanis, but the way of thinking is totally different. So I think although the parents are thinking they're trying to make it easier for their kids, it doesn't really work like that anymore. And it's more important to sort of let the kids talk and realize whether they have enough in common. And as I said, each child has to decide what they want out of their marriage, because as parents, although we want to mollycoddle our kids and we want to sort of wrap them up in cotton wool and everything, but they're ready to grow, and we need to sort of step back and allow them to. And if we put in the work initially, then we'll feel comfortable enough to step back and allow them to grow and make their decisions.
Ahsantum. Now I'm going to try and shift this discussion to a more legislative point of view, the Sharia wise. Sheikh Muhammad, and if I can also address the same question to you, sister, after Sheikh Muhammad. Sheikh Muhammad, religiously, to what extent can the parents come and have an effect into the decision making of their sons and their daughters in marriage? And to what extent are they able to have an effect in their final say? And if they, in some situations, as you said, the male and the female are already gone, they've got married, they're officially together. To what extent can the parents come and engage in separating these two, or having a negative or sometimes a positive effect in their lives?
Yes, whilst Dr. Masuma was speaking, I thought of a fourth reason why parents, so this could go on for hours and hours.
Yes, of course, I'm sure the parents will have other reasons.
Yes, probably. But just to quickly, and this is related to the question you asked, Sayyidina, and that is, in my experience with dealing with some of the parents, they feel that their children are not mature enough. And they think that they're going about for the marriage in a lustful intention rather than genuine settling down. So they feel that, look, they're making a decision in a hasty way. They're not necessarily, at the right age to decide to take someone from a different culture and so on. And the parents feel that they're in a better position to help them, to steer them, to kind of direct them to the more measured, reasonable, rational way of coming to that conclusion. Now, what happens in terms of what the parents can do is they sometimes make the child, their son or daughter, feel very, very guilty. They may blackmail them. Look, we'll never ever speak to you. You're not welcome in our house anymore. We don't want to see you. We don't want to have any connections with you. That has happened. I have seen that in my own eyes. I've spoken to parents about it. One parent told me, and Allah is witness, and I'm fasting this month of Ramadan, I'm not saying it for sensationalism. This is actually what one parent told me, and I will never ever say what the culture he is from. But he did tell me when I trying to convince him to give his daughter to another brother who's from a different culture, he said, if that person was a prophet, I will not give my daughter because he is from a different culture. And he told me, and he lives here in the UK. Anyway, so the passion that some of these parents have is incredible. Some of them feel it's a no-go zone. It's no way. Because back home or their immediate family members will constantly rebuke them and say, why did you agree? Why did you give permission? And so on. What happens on the ground sometimes is that they will make it more difficult for their son or daughter. So they will withdraw financial support, for example. They will tell people that they have nothing to do with this, for instance, and so on. Islamically, like I said, what I normally suggest to couples and parents is that get the ulama involved. Do not go through this, just by you deciding, and, because ultimately you need third party who knows the Sharia, who knows the boundaries, who knows what's acceptable and not, to come and advise you. In some instances, some parents, may Allah bless them, and I'm not here to bash parents because I'm a parent myself, and people tell me, oh, you have a daughter, you have sons, what happens if they marry somebody from outside the culture, so you have to, lead by example. I say, inshallah, let me be put to the test as well. But here's my, humble message to my respected parents out there, and that is, I know that you might fear contacting a scholar or getting somebody involved for mediation and things like that. But in these situations, we have to remove emotion. I know it's easier said than done. People are very emotional. They're very touched. And what tends to happen is people get angry. People start saying things. We need to get individuals like scholars, like respected individuals in society who are mediators to come and somehow find a common ground, something that can convince the parents that is okay. I feel in some communities it is too much of a red line. Like, I give you an example, something I have spoken about in Majalis, and that is Sayyid, non-Sayyid marriages. Yeah. In some cultures, it's absolutely necessary that the daughter marries a Sayyid. And I say, look, we have evidence from the life of Ahl al-Bayt that they did give their daughters to non-Sayyids. And none of the Maraja would come forward and say today that a Sayyid must marry a Sayyidah and vice versa. Yes, it's good, and if that's their preference, no problem. But if the daughter is saying, I don't necessarily want a Sayyid, then we shouldn't be necessarily enforcing this on the daughter. and making her move away. Another problem that we have, Sharia has come up and said enough is enough when it comes to intracultural marriages and marriages altogether, is istikhara. Too many people come and say, Yalla, Shaykhna, Sayyidna, please, istikhara for this marriage. I have a serious problem with it. I think if there is a compatibility, if the husband and wife are good together, the families are happy, right? And if there is a cultural issue, so the couple, boy and the girl, are very happy with the compatibility, there is a compatibility, and they're okay with each other, this is not the moment for istikhara. The fact that it's a different culture doesn't mean I'm going to take an istikhara because I'm not happy about this. This is a risk that some people take. And yes, it's not haram to take an istikhara, but it really damages the confidence of the boy and the girl with Islamic law and Islamic teachings, because they feel everything's going well and all of a sudden istikhara comes out bad, so the parents would use it to support their case as well.
Jazakumullah khair, Shaykhna. If I come back to Dr. Sister Masuma Ja'far, as again, in terms of Islamic teachings and the verses in the Holy Quran and the traditions of Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam, how do we learn how to relate or react towards our children deciding against something that we disapprove of?
So I think again, if we look at, like Shaykhna said, if we look at the lives of the Ahlul Bayt, they did marry outside the culture. They made sure that they married outside and brought new blood into their families and everything. And I think it's really important.
If I can intervene here, sister, there will be individuals that will come and say Ahlul Bayt are Ahlul Bayt, and they lived at a different time, at a different place, a different location. And I am living in 2021 in London, in UK, in Canada, in America. My children have grown up in a different society. Things have changed. How can I decide, or how can I agree to allow my daughter to go out and if she's, for example, from an Iraqi background or from Iranian background or from Pakistani background, to get them to get married to someone, let's say, from Africa, or to someone from America, from the European, from the Western society? They come and tell us, give me a more practical advice, give me a more practical reason why I should agree to such a thing.
Okay, so I agree that the Ahlul Bayt are the Ahlul Bayt, and that's why they're our role models. And we don't just love them for the sake of loving them, we're supposed to emulate them. So the fact that I claim to be a Shia means I need to emulate the Ahlul Bayt as much as possible. And whatever they did wasn't just for their time, it was a lesson for us for all times. So that's really, really important. I'm not saying it's easy. Like Shaykhna said, it isn't easy. But that's the concept of growth. It's not easy. And what Sheikh said with the fourth reason, I think that's really, really apt, because a lot of parents do think that their children aren't mature enough to make that decision, that they're just in love. It's just lustful emotions. They're not thinking it through. And the advice that I usually give to couples who come to me, whose parents aren't happy about them getting married, from a cultural perspective, I will actually say to them, look, your parents are doing it out of love. They're not doing it because they want to make life difficult for yourself. They're not doing it because they hate you or they're the enemy. They're doing it because they want what's best for you. If they think you're being immature, if they think you're not thinking it through, you need to show them that you are. So I suggest that you go to your parents and tell them, especially this is coming, if it's a girl, because she needs her father's permission. And like Shaykhna said, if the father is just saying no because of cultural reason and for no other reason than culture, then the father actually loses that right to a certain extent, and that's important to recognize that. But you want your parents' blessings. It's not just about the right, it's about having their blessings. So I usually tell the girl, look, tell your parents that this is the boy that I want to get married. Yes, he's from a different culture, but he has the same madhab. He is a Shia Isnashri. He has the wilayat of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He has the love of Imam Hussein. He believes in the Imam of our time. I feel like he's the one who's going to bring me closer to God. I don't want to go into this marriage without your happiness, but I'm not going to get married to anyone else. So there's no point you trying to push me to look at other people and to talk to other people, because I have decided this is the person I want to marry. I am willing to wait and give you time to get your head around it, to get to know the boy. so you're actually showing them that you're respecting them to a certain level. And again, as a parent, you're worried about your daughter getting older and older, and you're worried that she won't get married when she gets past a certain age, and you want her to get married. So if she is showing you that, look, I'm not willing to move from this. I want this marriage, but at the same time, I want you to be happy and I want you to be part of it. Maybe it might help the parents to actually realize that she has thought it through and she's not just acting on emotions or on lustful feelings.
Ahsantum, Jazakum Allah khair. My respected brothers, you heard both my respected guests, Sheikh Muhammad Hilli and Dr. Masooma Ja'far, speaking about emotions. Inshallah, after we come back from the break, we will concentrate on the facts that these kind of relationship issues will affect both the parents and the children in terms of psychologically and emotionally. Stay with us and we will be back inshallah to discuss further. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my respected guests, viewers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam television channel. Before the break, we were discussing and debating the issues of inter-community marriages and its effects and its problems with my respected guests, Samahat Sheikh Muhammad Hilli, and the respected guest, Dr. Sister Masooma Ja'far, where they highlighted the importance of the parents, the father and the mother, and the husband or the bride or the daughter, the husband, the groom and the bride, to be able to get into this discussion, a peaceful dialogue, to convince one another about the importance of opening the options for their children, for their parents, to be able to come to a conclusion, a safe conclusion, a harmonious conclusion, for them to be able to go ahead with this kind of a relationship. Now, in this second segment, I wanted to concentrate upon a very important issue where it's really affecting our youth, the boys and girls out there, negatively in regards with psychology and emotions. When they feel and when they see and when they notice the negative reactions of the two most beloved individuals or the most closest of family members, their uncles, their cousins, and their friends, regarding their choices and their options to get married to someone outside the culture or their society, they feel that they are emotionally have been put down. They're psychologically, they are suffering and they are suffocating. So we know that the aims and the goals of a marriage is the occurrence of friendship, mawadda, integrity, sakina, or reassurance, tama'nina. Not only so the husband and the wife can live forever. No, that is important. But also, if I can include in this, the fact that they want to bring into this life an offspring. They would want to have children. They would want to bring individuals who are emotionally and psychologically going to be on the right side, to be able to have a positive effect in their communities and their societies. So if I can start with you, Sheikh Muhammad Hilli, psychologically and emotionally, what effects would it have on the daughter or the son when they see that their parents are dealing with them in such a way where previously they were living in a nice family atmosphere, they were living in a harmonious way, and they were the most beloved individuals to their hearts, they were being looked after and brought up and raised in the perfect home. But when they come to introduce their future husband or wife to their family, they see that they are being fought psychologically and emotionally. And if before you answer, dear Sheikh, and this is something to share with my dear guests, that also I have a quote from an individual who has sent to us saying, having the guts to marry a guy outside my caste was something I never imagined. But this is where I want to concentrate, brothers and sisters. We both went through really big struggles and obstacles. Our families, this is the daughter speaking about her maybe father or her mother or her immediate family. Our family stopped supporting us emotionally and financially. So in the first year of our marriage, we had to even live in a very small room. Now, when I remember, it was very tearful and very emotional. So, Sheikhna, psychology, emotions, one's intellect, one's well-being plays a very big part in this. What do you have to say about this as a result of your experiences with dealing with youth and their families?
Yes, I think one of the emerging problems that we're facing in marital setups and generally family well-being and health is mental health. And what we're finding as well is the impact of such a strain on the marriage itself. So in one case, for example, I am dealing with, at this current moment, is that the mother rejected and did not accept the boy and the girl getting married. But the boy went ahead anyway. They had lost his father. And the boy went away anyway, went to marry. Now, once they are married, the mother, because the boy has decided to choose the wife, she thinks, over her, is making a life miserable for her son. And she can't come to terms with it. And the wife is now saying enough is enough because she's stressed so much. She is suffering so much. She said, I didn't get into this marriage for me to have fights with your mother all the time. I want peace. I want calm. I want tranquility. And the boy is stuck and he's trying to make, things as... Anyway, I'm giving you a life example. The situation, sadly, is that once the parents decide this marriage is not going to take place, and it does take place, and Dr. Masuma is right, I think clear and honest, heart-to-heart conversation, calm, respectful. I always say to the brothers and sisters, never raise your voice against your parents. Never name call them. Never say anything. Because one of them actually said, I'm going to write an email to the father who's saying no, and I'll say on the day of Qiyamah I'm going to complain against you in front of Fatima Zahra and you're going to be punished in Jahannam. Whoa, calm down. This is not the way to speak to somebody who's your elder, let alone a prospective father-in-law or your own father or mother. So we've got to be calm regarding this and put emotions aside. So what happens is my message to the parents, I feel, also need training. This is hard for our communities to take. Somebody who's 40, 50 says, I've had all the training I need. I don't need to be taught how to, look at life. We need seminars and conferences and guidance in different shapes and forms like this program and others. Inshallah, this message continues to really illustrate to our elders, our parents, all those in society that the way we can deal with such situations, conflict management, to deal with areas which aren't necessarily how we expect things to work out. But remember, it doesn't stop when they say no. When they say no, it will definitely continue because now they're getting married. Now they can't visit. Now when there's the baby, no, I just want to see the baby. I don't want to see your wife. I don't want to do anything with her. Then there is a strain between the two families. The two families, in-laws, you don't get married only to a person, you get married into the family. So the in-laws are not speaking and everyone intervenes and shaitan is having a celebration every day and, musibah. So they are actually planting a seeds of destruction in society when they do not understand the repercussions about rejecting somebody just based on, for example, culture.
Ahsantum, jazakumullah khair. If I can invite Sister Masuma Ja'far to this discussion, as we are speaking about psychology, such types of marriages, I mean, the romantic and the love that starts before someone getting married, maybe a female or a male have come to find their husband or their wife outside, at workplace, at the university, outside, they've in the cafe, and they establish this love and this romance. But as some come and say that after marriage, this type of marriages, after marriage, if the dreams of the husband and the wife are not materialized, because they are from different communities, because they are from different backgrounds, each one has a specific dream, each one has a specific way of life that they are thinking of. So if this love and their dream of the husband and the wife doesn't materialize, or if they are not able to adjust in respect of culture, attitude, religious practices, as the Sheikh earlier on explained, and they blame each other for their incompatibility and get frustrated. Now, because they didn't start with the family not supporting them, psychologically, how important is it that after getting married, after coming together, they are able to get help and support from the outside world, outside the home, outside the marriage, be it from the family, the father, the mother, or the elder in the community, or the elder in the family, or someone like yourself and someone like Sheikh Muhammad Hili as a counselor and as an advisor. How important is it in psychological and emotional times that this help and support is available?
Okay. First of all, can I just I truly believe that love is something that Allah puts into a marriage, because He says He gives muhadda and rahmah into the marriage. Okay, so the feelings that we feel before the nikah is recited are very superficial feelings. They're feelings of maybe lust, maybe desire, maybe emotional connection, maybe romantic feelings. But the true love is what Allah puts into the marriage once the nikah is recited, and that is the gift that Allah gives us. Now, whether we want to use that gift or whether we want to just store it and keep it in our attic for a later day, or to give back to someone else, like a lot of presents which we're gifted, which we don't see the value of, and then we don't use within our marriage, that's our choice. But Allah Himself says that He puts love and mercy within a marriage as a gift.
But I'm just trying to play, if I can use this terminology, the devil's advocate, because some youth come and say that, oh, I loved this person, or she loved me and I loved him, and it's something growing. I mean, there's something there. So how do I deal with it?
I agree. Yeah. So I think that the reason why I'm putting this definition out there is, then when you're talking to someone, especially when they feel that they have fallen in love with someone outside of Islam, and then like, I can't live without this person, I'm in love with this person, and this person is not willing to become a Muslim or come into the fold of Islam, they need to understand that this is not something that is, such a strong feeling that they will not be able to move past. It should not be something that supersedes Islam and their love for Allah. That's why I'm putting the definition out there, so that they realize that, yes, they may seem like strong feelings, but they're not something that should take preference over our love for God. But yes, I think the other thing I wanted to mention, really important, is when Shaykhna was talking about the fact that when parents say no and the children still get married, and then the parents are totally against it, I would actually question the parents to ask them how much of their ego is in play here. If their children have got married and with a nikah, which is valid Islamically, then why would you want to make it more difficult for them to now continue with that marriage? Why would you want to make it in a way that you want that marriage to break up? Because we know that divorce is something that shakes the arsh of Allah. Divorce is something that is the most disliked by God, the most disliked allowable thing by God. So, as a parent, you want your child to be happy. If they have chosen this, and although you have disagreed with it, and you have, for whatever reason, you may think it's going to be more difficult for them. If you think that it's going to be more difficult, then surely now that they have done it, would you not want to try to help them to make it easier? So I think, I would counsel the parents into sort of thinking about what is their thinking behind not supporting their child once the nikah has already been recited, officially, when it's been done. Your question on how much support they need. I think every couple needs support because marriage isn't easy, even if it's in the same from the same culture. It's not easy because you're bringing two totally different people into their life, thinking a certain way, and now they have to come together and give up a lot of their ego, break a lot of their ego, find a balance. And when God puts you with someone, he actually, he's looking for something. He's trying to bring balance into your life. So the thing that irritates you the most about your spouse is the thing that you need to work on yourself. I'm guaranteeing that. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and with work being done on yourself, you need a lot of support with that.
Ahsantum, Jazakumullah khair. Sheikhna, if I, for the 5 or 6 minutes that we have left until we go on break, Sister Masuma spoke about the ego of the father or the mother. And coming back, speaking of myself, coming back from an Iraqi background, this must be the example in the Pakistani, the Iranian, the khoja, the African, maybe the Western societies. There is a set of specific percentage of ego with the father or with the mother saying, I am an Iraqi, I am an Iranian, and my ego, my ancestry, the background, the culture, my tribe, my lineage doesn't allow me. We have to have someone getting married from the same family, from the same ashira, from the same tribe. How do we react? How does Islam actually come and react towards such a father or such a mother that have their ego disturb the life of their children?
Yes, certainly we can see it. Let me give you two examples so that people can see how it's really happening out there. Once I was speaking to a respected lady, try and convince her to accept for her daughter to marry somebody from outside her culture, and she turned against me. She said, instead of you working with us trying to convince our daughter, you're now asking us to change our mind. What kind of sheikh are you? So they're so convinced that they're right. She's telling me, you're actually taking the wrong side here. You need to actually help us to convince our daughter that she's doing the wrong thing. Another gentleman I spoke to, the father this time, I said to him, look, your daughter is going to go and get married anyway, whether you like it or not, I'm sorry to say. He said, you know why she's going to get married? I said, why? He said, it's because of you. I said, why me? He said, if it wasn't for you, she wouldn't know that she could get married without my permission, and Islam allows it. So you actually told her, so it's your fault. So just to give you an example of how the extent of, as you said, the ego impacts parents' decision to stand firm as much as possible. Just to twist this argument, to twist this discussion, I feel for the sisters and brothers watching, they often ask me personally, what is the most important quality that you think we should look for in a spouse? And of course, the Holy Prophet ﷺ famously says, "Man ja'akum min tardawna dinahu wa khuluqahu fazawwijuhu." We all know this hadith. We've all memorized this hadith. Deen and akhlaq. Deen and akhlaq. Everyone really points to this. I'm going to be different and say, yes, the Prophet said deen and akhlaq, but within this, there is a very important quality, which I feel is probably fantastic and it's so important. This is a gift for all the Imam Hussein TV 3 viewers who are watching, as to what you want to really look for in a husband and wife if you're not married yet. If you're married, just go and get a cup of tea. This is not for you. Okay, this is what it is. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, Al-mu'minu layyinul arika. The believer is soft in disposition, meaning they're flexible, they're not stubborn, they're not hard-hearted, they're not my way or the highway. The problem in marriage sometimes we have is conflicts happen when there is no opportunity. Well, conflicts can be resolved or at least managed when there is no opportunity, because the egos come in and people say, it's my way, that's it. No, you agree, otherwise khalas. There's no other way, right, for this to be resolved. I remember one of the ulama telling me, a couple came to him and they said, we're having fights because we have a young baby and we can't name him. So we want you to name him. I said, okay, how do you want me to name him? Just choose a name? They said, no, pick up the Holy Quran and open the page, and whatever name comes, give us the name. He looked at them and said, I have to warn you that Fir'aun is mentioned 72 times in the Quran. So they said, okay, no problem, we'll take that risk. So he opened the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Istiftah. He saw what? Nabiullah Lut. So he said, your son is called Lut. They said, sorry, we don't want it, we're going for other way. Sadly, Prophet Lut is, no one wants to name after him. Anyway, so the point here is this, that sometimes this inability to be flexible, this inability to stubbornness, if you look at parents, if they're doing this out of being stubborn, this is a lesson for the couple. The couple, sometimes we come and say, I will never do what my parents do. But sometimes we do a reflection or some part of what they do in our day-to-day life. So it's a very important thing for the believer not to be flexible in deen, by the way. I always mention this as a disclaimer at the end. That doesn't mean, yes, you know what, this sheikh said to us, be easygoing. So I will miss Salat al-Fajr. I will not come for Muharram Majalis. I will not cry for Abu Abdullah. I'm easygoing. No. We're not talking about easygoing in religion. We're talking about easygoing in matters like this, social dilemmas, these kind of challenges, choices in life, outside deen, right? Where you have an opportunity here, an opportunity there. We have to be individuals and just to point also a fact, this is a fact for all parents. And from Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam to our master Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, Ruhi wa Arwah al-Alameen, Allahu al-Fida, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajah, all their mothers were non-Arab. Fact. All their mothers were non-Arab. This is a fact. You can go and check it, okay, for the sisters and brothers watching, right? They were slaves. They would get them from North Africa, right? So a lot of them from areas like Morocco. They're non-Arab in the sense they're not from Jazira al-Arabiya. So if the imams married outside the culture, what is the problem of our sons and daughters marry? Because they're role models, yes, and we can learn from them. Now, the key thing is, I'm not supporting intra-cultural. I'm saying if it does happen, let's work around it and facilitate it, and not stubborn.
Ahsantum, jazakumullah khair. My respected brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah, in this segment we were able to touch upon some of the very sensitive issues that are affecting our boys and girls, our brothers and sisters out there who are facing these kind of psychological and emotional problems. And inshallah, we'll go for a short break, and after the break we will discuss the difficulties that the children that are going to be born into these kind of families will face, and also the difficulties that are faced by the ulama, the scholars, the resident alims, the leaders within the community, and the role of the Islamic centers in dealing with such problems. Stay with us and we will come back to you shortly. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my respected brothers and sisters, and welcome to the last segment of our debate time show, where we are discussing the inter-community marriage difficulties and problems that are faced by our brothers and sisters in the community. Sister Ma'sooma Ja'far, if I can start with you in this last segment of the show. The culture and religion differences between the parents creates problems for the children to adopt to any particular religion or lifestyle or culture. It will affect them negatively in the decision making in their future life. It also creates marital problems of the children and other siblings, as society does not recognize this type of marriage. There are some cultures, there are some societies that will look down upon the parents, the young man or the young lady who went away, got married to whoever they wanted without the consent of the family, without the consent of the culture, and as a result of that marriage they had children, new children came into the community and society. What effects, in a negative manner, what effects will this have on this newborn child or children when they come to this life and they see that their grandparents or in some cases even their parents, because they are from different cultures and different backgrounds, they are not on the same page in terms of opinions and in terms of decision making.
It's really, really difficult as parents to be on the same page. It's really, really important. So it's really difficult, and it's really important because, you know, when your children are young, you need to be saying the same thing. Otherwise, one, it causes confusion within the child, and secondly, as the child grows up, they play one parent up against the other. When it comes to religion, it's even more important that you're on the same page, and this is why it's really, really important that, as Sheikna said, that, you know, when you're getting married, the culture is not that big a deal, but the religion is very, very important. So although, you know, you can have Shia Sunni marriages, and unless you've actually thought about how you're going to bring your children up, you know, and a lot of couples will say, well, we'll let them decide. I think that's easier said than done, because as a Shia, there are certain practices that are fundamental to us. So, you know, the mourning for Abu Abdullah Hussein, the going for ziyarah, and things like that. You know, the way we pray on turba and things like that are really, really important. And it's when your child, who you love so much, doesn't have the same passion for these things, it makes it very, very difficult. And there is a lot of confusion. I remember actually talking to a young boy whose father and mother, one was a Sunni and one was a Shia. I can't remember which way around it was. But this child wasn't sure what he was. And he'd come to me to sort of just ask questions and things. But for instance, he said one salah he would pray with turba, with his hands on his side, and the other salah he would pray without the turba, with his hands folded. And he said, this way I'm covering both bets, so at least one would be accepted. And you know, it was that confusion. So he wasn't able to build his relationship with God because he was so confused in how he should do it. He didn't know, you know, which fiqh he should follow, and you know, which sharia he should follow. And it was very difficult. You could see that it was having a huge impact on the child himself. So I think when you go into a marriage, you have to realize that although the marriage is just you and your partner at the moment, there will be children who come into this marriage, and you need to make sure that, you know, they have the fundamentals at least sorted. I think everything else then can be worked on. And when it comes to cultural, it's not as important. So if they don't follow a certain culture and they do it a certain different way, that's fine. And you know, you can take the positives. All cultures have positives and negatives, and you can actually then decide as a couple to take the positives from each other's culture. And there's you know, that would be amazing, because you're actually questioning your own culture and seeing what parts of the culture you don't want to go with, which maybe conflicts with Islam. So you know, it actually makes you a better Muslim, a stronger Muslim. A lot of the times, you know, I've heard people who've gone into marriages where, especially if they've married a revert, where, you know, they've said it's made them actually question their religion and become stronger in their faith, because a revert will actually ask all those questions. When you're born into the faith, you just accept, and a lot of the times you accept, but you don't really take it on board. You don't actually think about how you feel about this. Whereas a revert will say, well, why are you doing this? What's the purpose behind this? And it actually makes you makes you reflect a lot more on your own belief system and on your own values, and become a better and a stronger Muslim with stronger faith, and then that will then flow through to your children, inshallah. So I don't think there's a problem with questioning. I don't think there's a problem with discussions, but I think you need to have these discussions before the marriage, so you know exactly how you're going to bring up your children, and be on the same page. So I had an incident where there was a couple who were marrying from the same culture, but one was from back home, and one had grown up in the West, and really they didn't have much in common. And when they talked about it, you know, it's like the conclusion they came to, which I thought was really, really beautiful. They said, okay, you know what? You have a certain culture. I've obviously, you know, the girl had been brought up here, so she'd got a lot of the Western culture. The boy was from back home, so he had a lot of the East African culture. And they decided that when it came to their children, they would put Islam as the focus. If God had dictated something, then they had to follow that. If God hadn't dictated, then it was up for discussion. and everyone could have a say, and whoever could give the best argument would then that's what they would follow. And in that way, they made their own little culture in their own family, which was beautiful to see.
أحسنتم جزاكم الله خير. Sheikhna, Sheikh Muhammad, now if we can move on and bring the communities and the community centers and the ulama and the scholars into this discussion. As we have seen, as I have experienced, you yourself, Dr. Masooma Ja'far, as she is very prominent in her community, we've come across individuals that they will stop their connection, or they will stop their friendship at sometimes, or their relationship with the community leaders, with the imams, with the resident alim. They will break their ties with the community center, stop going to the community center because the alim or the scholar or the person helping in that family problem did not stand with them on the same side. What are the problems that is being faced by the ulama, by the scholars, by the resident alims, when they are not able to convince or get the parents or the children to understand and implement Islamic laws and Sharia laws?
Ahsantum. I think in this unseen contract that we sign, inshallah, with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, it comes with the job. I know Dr. Masooma, yourself, Sayyid Ali, and all the respected sisters and brothers working hard in the community to serve in any capacity, as far as leaders, as far as scholars are concerned. Our our instruction and our motto and our guidance is from the Holy Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in chapter 5, verse number 54 says, وَلَا يَخَافُونَ فِي اللَّهِ لَوْمَةَ لَائِمٍ. They are not afraid, because of the sake of Allah, the blame of those who blame them. So in many ways, it comes with the responsibilities we take on. Because if we're out there to please people, then we compromise principles and values. And sadly, some people think that because they have a good relations with you or their friends for many years, and I have honestly, hand on heart, and I'll say it for the first time on television, this is a premiere for this, what I'm about to say. I have been offered money by some people. They say, you know what, give us this opinion and I'll give you this. This is these individuals, the ulama su in the past, who are with the salatin, with the tyrants and the leaders. That's how they would just get some money and they would just, keep going. And it happens today as well. In some countries, you have people who will just be mouthpieces for the governments, right? And they just talk whatever the government wants them to do. So ultimately, what makes this job difficult as well is the fact we have to be principally driven. We have to be focused on doing what pleases Allah and based on the teachings of the Quran and the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam. And do it with respect, and to say to parents, to say to others, look, this is what Sharia is. It's not me. I said to that brother, that father who told me, it's all your fault, my daughter's getting married, you told her the ruling. I said, if you have a problem with the ruling, take up with Rabbil Alameen, don't take up with me. I'm just a messenger. I'm just presenting you these teachings. So, yes, there are scholars who have been affected badly. There are centers who have been affected because people boycott them. They start spreading rumors about them. Or especially when it comes to divorce. I think divorce is the major issue here. Marriage is less so because there's less cases. But when it comes to divorce, they're trying their best. They're trying to mediate. And then eventually there has to be a divorce. And then one side is unhappy. They want to tarnish reputation because once again, the ego comes in. And they want to make sure that they kind of emerge as better. But I feel what we need to do as scholars, as community leaders, as community centers is to raise awareness, to issue and to publish books and pamphlets and websites and short videos, promotions, things like that, to try and get this message across to make our elders and our youngsters to understand their responsibility. By the way, I don't want people watching this to think that we're just taking the side of the couple or the youngsters and we're kind of against their parents. Not at all. I think what needs to happen is a calm, collected, measured discussion based on the situation. Sometimes our kids are really hasty. And yes, they choose, I mean the boy and the girl. Sometimes they do choose not based on understanding, and the parents are trying to genuinely help them. If there is a genuine problem with the boy or a girl, for example, something in the past and they're currently continuing, for instance, or there is a bad reputation, or they've had, really so on. Could be legitimate reasons objecting, and sometimes we can't just use the fact that parents don't know, they're not connected with this going on to kind of go against them. Not at all. I think each case merits its own discussion.
Ahsantum, jazakumullah khair. If I come back to Sister Masuma Ja'far, in regards with resident alims, scholars, community support workers, and Husseyniyat and mosques, what role does a community center play in educating both in the family, the parents and their siblings and their children, in premarital education, and also after marital situations, where they place lessons, educational classes, courses for the families and the children to attend, whether collectively or separately, for them to be able to highlight some of the pros and cons that they may fall in regards with the future relationship of their children.
I think it's really, really important that communities have workshops and classes for people to attend to learn how to conflict resolution, to learn how to have dialogue, to learn how to actually listen, to learn about how much of my ego is in play, and things like that. And I think it's really difficult, like Sheikhna said, to actually get older people to come to these classes and workshops, because they feel like, okay, I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s, I've learned everything I need to learn. There's no point. But again, as the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, learn from cradle to the grave. And the fact that we're still living means that we're still able to learn and grow. If we had stopped growing, then what would be the purpose of my life? So it's important to recognize that I should be continuously learning. And also to recognize that I may know a lot of things, but this role that I'm taking on as a mother-in-law is a new role. I've not been a mother-in-law before. I don't know how it is to be a mother-in-law. Just like the girl doesn't know how to be a wife. It's a new role for her, and a daughter-in-law. It's a new role for me to be a mother-in-law, and to step back from being, a mother to my son. Step back a little bit, because now he's an adult. I'll still be his mother, but he's his own person, and he has to make his own decisions. And also, how can I be a mother to my new daughter-in-law? All of these things are new roles which I haven't ever experienced, and it would help to be in a workshop where we can sort of discuss things and role play and come out with scenarios. And obviously everyone's situation will be very different, but once you've thought about things, it helps when you're in a situation, especially when it's a very emotional situation, because all these things will come back to you, and hopefully then you won't react. The other thing that I suggest, whenever you're in any difficult situation, the thing that I always tell people to do is actually say, what is Allah trying to teach me here? Where is my growth? I think if you bring it back to yourself, rather than focusing on the other person and what they've done wrong and how they've behaved, actually, because I can't control anyone else. I can't change how anyone else behaves. I can only change myself. So if I, in any situation, think to myself, where is my growth? What is Allah trying to teach me here in this situation? Then I will, inshallah, take a few moments, not react straight away, but take a few moments to think it through, and then give an appropriate reaction.
Ahsantum.
Inshallah.
Ahsantum. Jazakumullah khair. And finally, Sheikhna, if I can come to you for the final time during this episode, as a closing statement, as an advice, as something, as a scholar and as a individual working in the community with these problems and issues, what would you like to address the brothers and sisters that are watching us in this episode? What do you want to get across to them? Tafadhal.
Ahsantum. I know that we always talk about this, but subhanallah, Rabb al-Alameen has a specific package for each and every one of us. Every individual goes through hardship, challenges, difficulties in their own way, but within their own capacity. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala does not burden us over that which we cannot tolerate or cannot even withstand. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. My message to my respected sisters and brothers, either the parents or the youngsters or anyone else that's involved, to understand that sometimes we may not know where this hardship or trial or difficulty or examination or test comes in. It comes from different directions. And this is the crunch moment. This is the moment where we need to prove to ourselves, Allah knows, to ourselves, we need to prove to our Imam of our time, Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, Ajjal Allah Ta'ala Faraja. We recite, Allahumma ajil waliyik al-Faraj. We say, Ya Allah, we want hasten his reappearance. We are followers. We love Amir al-Mu'mineen. We love Fatima al-Zahra. We love Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. We'll do everything for the Ahl al-Bayt. When push comes to shove, and a decision like this, we put ourselves first. I ask you, how many times in a day we say, Allahu Akbar? How many times in a day we stand in Salah and we say anything and everything cannot be even coming close to Rabb al-Alameen. He is greater and cannot even be compared to anything else, right? But then when it comes to these decisions, I'm saying my ego is Akbar. What I want is Akbar. My reputation is Akbar, right? So ultimately, we need to be calm. We need to think this is a moment for us to excel. If I do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with, and how do I know? I ask the people who are experts. That's why I said, go to ulama, go to people respected and say, what am I doing? Is it right? You tell me. I love it when people say to the ulama, you tell me. I don't know. Shaykhna, Sayyidna, please advise me. I don't know. Okay, ask one or two so that you get a good opinion overall. And if they tell you what you're doing is wrong, how will you face Allah on the day of Qiyamah? And He will say to you, how many times were you reminded not to place anything above me, and you did. So it's a chance for us to become better human beings. Allah gives us these tests so that we become ahsan, wa ahsan, wa ahsan, better and better and better. If I respond to the invitation of Allah, I'll be closer to Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. I'll be closer to Ali Muhammad. But if I don't, then unfortunately, Allah will help me.
Ahsantum, jazakumullah khair. And Sister Masuma Ja'far, I would appreciate if you can share with us your closing statement and any messages that you have for the Muslim community, for the community here in the UK, and whoever is watching us from wherever in the world, about looking after their children and being there for them when they need them in the difficult times.
It's really important to take on the role as a parent for the sake of Allah, to keep our niyat truly pure when we are being parents. Because if I take on the role of being a parent for my own self, then my ego will come into play. I will have expectations from my children in the way that I want them to behave, in the way I want this and I want that, and I want them to do it this way and that way. But if I do it, if I have my niyyah correct from the beginning, and I'm bringing up my children fi sabilillah, for the pleasure of Allah, and I'm doing it the way that Allah wants, then even when I'm faced with any difficult situation where I feel like my child is not doing something the right way, then my advice to them will be the advice that God would want them to take on, the advice that the Imam would give them. It's not coming from an ego, from a selfish perspective, but it's coming from a godly focused perspective. And that way, then I think I'll be able to, if I take my ego out and I'm able to talk to them like that, then the dialogue will happen much more easier, and there won't be that much conflict. Because once my ego comes into play, then the person who I'm talking to, whether it's my child or my husband or anyone else, their ego will come into play and the egos will clash. But when I'm talking from a place of love, from a place of God focusedness, then the other person will, inshallah, hear me a little bit better. And even if their ego does come into play, then inshallah later on they will think about what I have said. So I think my closing statement would be, as a parent, keep checking your niyyah, keep making sure that the niyyah is God focused, rather than sort of just doing it as as something that, okay, I'm a parent, so I'm just doing it, and not thinking about the sort of the depth of the reason why I am bringing up my children.
Ahsantum, jazakumullah khair. And if I take this opportunity to bring this episode to an end by summarizing what we spoke about and how we can advise our parents, our brothers and sisters, who have children coming up to an age where they will make their decisions on their marital life and who they are going to choose, with the help and support of the family and the community centers and the alims and the scholars and the individuals who volunteer to be there for their community. I would say we need to continue establishing that good relationship that we have with our parents and with our children. That is very important. If in worst come scenarios, if there is a situation where there is a conflict of opinions and interests that will differentiate or separate the parents from the children, both need to be very wise and keep emotions aside. They need to, if needs be, they need to bring an ally, a relative, to be involved in this, who he or she themselves are wise. A friend of the family, maybe someone that the parents may listen to, someone that the children may listen to. Maybe at times we need to go to the local mosque, to the local center, to the sheikh, like Sheikh Muhammad Hilli or Sister Masooma Ja'far, someone that we can relate to, someone that would listen to us. We don't leave the problem to be there, living with us for a period of time without actually assessing the trouble and the problem itself, and not disconnecting the connection. The parents should never disconnect the connection between the children and themselves, and also the children, the male, the female. At the end of the day, this is your family, this is your backbone, this is someone who you are going to want to be there for you until the last moments of your life. Never would Islam come and encourage such an action towards the parents of one another. And to be patient. Patience, brothers and sisters, is very important. Sheikh Muhammad Hilli, the respected Sheikh, and Sister Masooma, they both highlighted about the importance of patience being practiced by the parents and the children in these kind of situations. And finally, whatever decision you make sure you understand and you know that it is not you yourself alone in this problem, in this epidemic, that there are other individuals who are going to be affected by this, and they are going to be your children, your daughter, whom you've cherished, you've loved, you've supported in good times and in bad times, in difficult times and in times of ease, in emotional times, in psychological times, until you've nurtured them and raised them to be able to move on, leave your sanctuary, leave the home, leave what they used to have a safe haven in, and move on and establish their own nest. So it's very important, brothers and sisters, that we take the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Holy Quran, and the narrations and the traditions of Ahlul Bayt, and our grand scholars and ulama, and the community centers, and the elders in the community, the elder generations, to be able to establish a well-enriched family that will bring in siblings to the society, and also these siblings and these children will, insha'Allah, leave their positive marks and their fingerprints for the community and for the next coming generations, inshallah. Let me close with a narration from Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. The Imam says, the hell has been made ready for those who disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be he a most important person in society, wa in kana sayyidan qurashiyya, and only those who obey Allah will go into the paradise, be he a slave, wa in kana abdan habashiyya. I would like to take this opportunity from the personnel behind the cameras, from the producers and from myself of Debate Time, to thank my respected and honorable colleague and Sheikh Muhammad Al-Hilli, a scholar, a speaker, an author, and also a very active individual in the community here in London and outside London, in reacting and in helping people in these kind of situations. And also I would like to thank my respected guest doctor and Sister Masooma Ja'far, who herself, she is also a speaker, a speaker that has lectured all over the world, as Sheikh Muhammad Hilli also has lectured and spoken in different venues all around the world, and also an author and someone who specializes in this field. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you all, to protect my dear guests, and inshallah join us in the next episodes where we will discuss further important and sensitive topics to your heart and to the heart of the community. Thank you very much, my dear guests. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.